Well, it's no secret. We all know that bass fishing gets hot in the fall. Those bass are chasing bait fish and getting fat for the winter. And if you got the right techniques and the right lures, you can be very successful. In this episode, we're going to talk about some key information and techniques to help you be successful power fishing for bass this fall. Stay tuned. Shane Flynn Outdoors, brought to you by Omnia Fishing. Experience the most personalized tackle shopping on earth. And by Finn's Outdoors. Gear up for every adventure. And also by Trika, engineered to dominate. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! What a big girl! Hey everybody, thanks for stopping by the channel. Sorry we're out on the lake. Weather's not cooperating today, but we're here in the garage. It's a little bit drier. But I want to talk to you today about fall power fishing for bass. And really love this technique for fishing bass in the fall. But instead of just showing you a bunch of catches out on the lake, I want to show you a few catches, but I also want to talk to you about some specifics that can help you catch more bass in the fall, especially power fishing for bass in the fall. So I'm going to talk to you today about where I like to fish for bass in the fall in this technique of power fishing, location-wise on the lake, when I switch to this technique, and talk about a few baits, what I like to throw to power fish for bass this time of year. But before I go into those three things, I want to give you my definition of power fishing. So power fishing in the fall for bass is going to be throwing some type of moving bait that mimics the primary forage of the lake. So if it's shad, or if it's alewife, or if it's perch, whatever the primary forage that bass are feeding up on in the fall, because they start feeding up heavier in the fall when the water temperature starts dropping, I'm going to throw a fast moving bait that looks like that primary forage. And I'm going to be just ripping and gripping, running and gunning and casting and covering a lot of water with these fast action baits to get that reaction bait from that big bass or a bunch of bass when I'm out there fishing. That's what I consider fall power fishing. Just running and gunning and just running in across points and fishing fast moving baits to get that reaction strike. That's my favorite type of fishing, to be honest with you. But you can't always fish like that. So that's my definition of power fishing. So where am I going to power fish on the lake, location wise? Well, it's the middle of October here in Virginia and the water temperature is still in the 70s. It's getting a little bit lower every day, but what I have found this time of year is the bass aren't starting to migrate. You hear about this migration of bass to creeks and back of pockets and coves. That's not happening right now in Virginia, but what is happening is the bait fish are moving up shallow. So they got a lot of bait fish in that 10 to 2 foot range, maybe more like 8 to 2 foot. I'm finding a lot of bait fish much shallower, and I'm finding them on the main lake points. So typically in the summer, I start on main lake points and fish deep in that 25 to 18 foot of water where those bigs hang out. You know, they'll move up in the mornings and the afternoon and feed, but when the bait fish are all congregated up close on these main lake points in the shallows, that's what I'm going to be targeting, because I'm looking for those active bass. So I'm going to be on main lake points, but I'm going to be fishing much shallower and targeting those fish that are chasing those bass on those main lake points. So main lake points are where I'm going to start, but I'm going to start on main lake points that has some type of habitat that bass like to hang out in first. So if they've got points that's got trees and stumps and laydowns or lily pads or some type of grass that they're going to hide in where they can ambush that prey, those are the points I'm going to start off on. So those are the points I'm going to start with. Now don't get me wrong, some of those points that are just flats that are out there with no structure on them, they'll hold bass too. And some days you'll get out there and they'll just be schooling on that and you can just crush them on those points with no structure. So don't rule those out. I'm just going to start with the points that have some type of structure. So that's where I'm going to start at. Now, as the water gets colder, yeah, the fish may migrate back in the pockets and creeks, but I'm going to follow the bait fish. But this time of year, mid-October, the bait fish are still out on the main lake points, starting to get shallow, and they'll probably start drifting around the banks, moving in different areas of the water, and I'm going to follow them through the year. But main lake points is where it's at this time of year. And you'll see this as we go through this video. I'll throw a few catches. Actually, I'll throw a catch in now. You can see what I'm talking about. There we go. That's a nice one. Drag, drag, drag. How big are you, fella? Probably shouldn't boat flip him, but I did. A nice bass right there. Another power fish right here. Windy points, man, you stick with it. Nice bass, can't go wrong with that. So now that we talked about location, let's talk about when I start to power fish. There's some key things that I key in on to give me the indications or the indicators that I need to switch my tactics up and start power fishing. And the very first one is wind. Wind is your friend when you want to power fish. I like to focus on the wind. The wind direction is important, but having some wind helps a lot. If you get a south or a southwest or a west wind, that's usually great winds to power fish in. The bass seem to be active in those when the wind is blowing in those directions. Now you can still catch bass in north winds and east winds. It's just not as likely. Usually those are post front winds, but you still do it. But I really like the southwest or southwest winds. It's really good winds to power fish. Now the other thing I like is cloudy skies, right? Overcast skies really, really help, and you'll see in these catches today I have a little bit of overcast and I got the wind, and that really helps when you're out power fishing. So if you got some type of weather disturbance with the wind, some clouds, a little bit of rain, some showers, no lightning, don't like fishing in the lightning, but some type of weather disturbance along with the wind really is an indicator for me to pick up fast moving baits, cover water, and you'll start catching a lot more fish. That's when I'm going to power fish. That's the indicators of when I'm going to start power fishing. And I would say that's a 80 to 90% you're going to do well when those conditions. Now, there's always that 10, 15% that, you know, no matter what you throw on certain days, you're not going to catch anything. But for the most part, those are good indicators to be out there power fishing. And that's when I am going to jump on these power baits that we're going to talk about here in just a second. The power fishing baits that we're going to talk about in a second. There's one. Come on in here, big gal. Oh yeah, nice bass. Nice 2.5, 3 pounder. Nice windy day in the fall in October. We're getting on the windy bass today. Nice bass to get us started. Got cloudy overcast. Throwing that Jacob Willer triple blade. Let's just jump right into what I like to fish when I'm out power fishing. So, like I said in the beginning here, I'm going to throw something that looks like the bait fish. Now you already seen I was throwing a spinnerbait in this episode, and it was in windy conditions on the points, etc. And the first thing I'm going to tell you, the first thing I'm going to talk to you about is the spinnerbait. Spinnerbait is a great bait this time of year. Some things that I change up. I like to fish a spinnerbait in the fall, winter, and early spring. Once it becomes post-spawn, summertime, my spinnerbait box collects dust. I don't catch a lot of fish on spinnerbaits in the summer, probably because I don't fish them as much, but they're just not as productive for me in the summer. But boy, when that water starts cooling down, spinnerbait starts to shine. But what I like to do in the fall is I like to have multiple blades, usually willow leaf blades. They put off a lot of noise. A lot of these small blades, this is a Jacob Willer 3-blade willow leaf blades, puts off a lot of flash, a lot of noise, and I fish it in a bait fish color. Right? I like a curly tail grub on my spinnerbait. That's my preference. You can use whatever type of trailer you want. They all work. But something that I can run and gun with is my spinnerbait, and I'm going to throw this in everything. I'm going to throw it in the grass. I'm going to throw it in the lily pads. I'm going to throw it in the sticks. I'm going to throw it in the rock piles, everything. Yeah, I might get it hung up, but I know how to fish a spinnerbait, and I can work it through most of all that without getting it hung up. It's pretty, not weedless, and it's not snagless, but it's pretty weedless and snagless if you know how to fish it. And I'm going to fish it pretty fast. I'm going to knock it. I'm going to hit every stump, stick, rock. I'm going to bounce it off of it, and I'm going to be reeling pretty fast to drive that reaction strike. And like I said, just let it rip and run and gun with that spinnerbait and hit everything that's on those points, right? Even in open water. I'll throw this right in open water. It doesn't have to have cover around. I'll throw it in open water and catch fish like I did on one of these catches you just seen. So really great bait, spinnerbait, can't go wrong. Lots of flash, lots of blades, putting out a lot of noise, a lot of flash, will attract bass. I fish this on a 7'3" medium heavy rod, fast action. This is my Trika 6X, great spinnerbait rod, very, very sensitive. I like to feel my blades when I reel with a spinnerbait, and this Trika 6X is a great rod. 7-to-1 gear ratio. Usually I fish 17-pound fluorocarbon. I got braid on here because I'm fixing to go down south and fish a bass tournament here in the next week or so, and I'm going to be in a lot of heavy vegetation. So got braid on there right now. But spinnerbait, really great bait this time of year. Can't go wrong with a spinnerbait. Again, lots of flash, lots of blades. The second one I'm going to talk about, one of my favorite baits. And you know, I was looking back at all my episodes. I've never put out an episode with a square bill. I'm going to do that real soon. This is square bill crankbait. Great fall bait. You can run this thing. This is a Bagley's 4 to 6 foot runner. It's just a great bait to fish in the fall. Don't need to fish it real deep. You can fish this real fast. You go again, it's in the forage color, white with the purplish gray back. It's the ALY color here. And love fishing this bait in the fall. How I retrieve this, there's 2 retrieve techniques that I use. The first one, everybody knows it, just burn it. Just reel it. Just reel it real fast. Depending on the gear ratio, I think I 8 to 5 on this one. I don't have to reel it fast with 8 to 5, but get it moving and just keep it moving. And usually it'll get slammed. But if it's not getting slammed by just reeling it fast, the other technique that I like to do is reel it fast for 4 or 5 seconds, pause it, 1001, 1002, start fast reeling, don't slow, just burn it again. Usually right when you pause it or right when you start to reel again, as you start to reel again, the bass will slam it. And that's a really good technique to use. So those are the 2 techniques I use with the square bill. And I'm going to fish this around everything. Square bill, you know, the square bill kind of bounces off stumps and things of that nature. Yeah, you can get hung up, but it doesn't get hung up like the next bait I'm going to tell you about. But it's pretty versatile. And I'll just run it on the bottom, especially if it's a gravel bottom or a mud bottom. I'll just keep burning it, you know. It's a good bait. And you won't go wrong with the square bill. You'll catch a lot of fish on it. It's just a really good all-around fall bait. And you can get these run from 2 feet to 10 feet. Once you get around that 8 to 10 feet, you're really on more of a crankbait. But depending on your lake, you may need something that runs a little deeper. But really great bait, very versatile, great fall bait. Catch a lot of fish on the square bill. And then the third one that I'm going to talk about here, you've already seen it in my latest video before this one, and that is the good old lipless crankbait. Can't go wrong with the lipless crankbait this time of year. You can rip it and grip it, just run and gun with this and just burn it everywhere. Technique that I like is just cranking it real fast, works, especially when it's shallow, or ripping it through the grass. I'm not going to throw this around the stumps. I'm not going to throw this around a bunch of brush because it will get hung up. But a good rattle on it, I'm just going to burn it or rip it through the grass. It's a great versatile bait. And if you get on schooling bass, if you happen to get in one day and they start schooling, you can't go wrong with this. It's a great bait. You can cover a lot of water. This is a bigger profile. I can cast this thing a country mile, cover a lot of water. And if those bass are active, they typically are going to jump up on this lipless crankbait. Now this is the Spro version, whatever brand you like. I like the Spro, and I like that bigger profile one. So for both the lipless crankbait and the square bill, I'm going to fish. These are the new Trika cranking rods. They got a good moderate flex to them with using treble hooks. With the square bill, I got a medium weight rod, moderate action, with this big, heavy lipless crankbait, another Trika casting rod in medium heavy, 12 or 14 pound fluorocarbon, and 7-to-1 gear ratios is what I like to throw on those. So make sure you got some good flex in these rods when you're throwing those treble hooks around. Helps those bass stay on the line. But you can't go wrong with the lipless crankbait or that square bill crankbait with some treble hooks on it. You're going to catch a lot of fish. And again, the spinnerbait's another great bait as well. Just catch a ton of fish on all 3 of these baits. So, well, there you have it, folks. I talked to you about where I like to fish, when I like to power fish in the fall, and what I like to power fish with. There's another 1,000 baits we could go over to power fish with that look like bait fish, but these are just 3 that are very productive for me over the years. If you get a chance to get out there and throw these baits, you're going to catch some fish. So hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. And until next time, tight lines and have fun fishing.